sound of marching iron-shod boots strikes the earth, steady as thunder, the measured rhythm of legions that had conquered the world. The clatter of shields, the harsh Latin commands, the disciplined drumbeat of empire fills the air, only to be drowned by the roar of an angry crowd, the clash of iron against iron, the wild fury of voices that do not submit. From the windswept isles of Britain comes a cry not of fear but of vengeance. In the cold mist where oak forests whisper of forgotten gods and blood stains the soil of tribes who will not bow, a queen rises from ashes. She is beaten, her body scourged, her daughters desecrated, her people stripped of land and dignity. Rome believes the lash will silence her, believes humiliation will shatter her spirit. But from the smoke of cruelty she forges a weapon greater than steel, an unbreakable will. Out of fire and ruin emerges Boudica, the warrior queen who would dare to shake the very foundations of the Roman Empire. Part 1. The Queen of the Iceni. Before the eagle of Rome cast its shadow over Britain, before disciplined legions paved roads across wilderness and imposed the cold order of empire, the fertile plains of the east belonged to the Iceni. Here, rolling green fields stretched toward the horizon, dotted with settlements of timber and thatch, alive with the sounds of herds and harvest. The Iceni were warriors, proud and fiercely independent, yet bound by kinship and the will of their gods. Their queen was Boudica. She stood tall, her very presence commanding respect, with fierce eyes that could pierce through fear, and a cascade of tawny red hair that fell like a mane to her hips. She was no mere consort. She was a woman of spirit, whose stature and voice carried the weight of destiny. Beside her ruled her husband, King Prasutagus, who understood the precarious balance of survival in a world where Rome's armies had already subdued tribe after tribe. The Iceni had once resisted Rome, but defeat had forced them into compromise. Prasutagus accepted the role of a client king, an arrangement where his people could live and rule their lands in name, but only under the heavy shadow of Roman authority. Tribute was demanded, loyalty extracted, Roman officials ever watchful. It was peace bought with submission. Prasutagus, knowing the ambitions of empire, tried to secure his family's future with cunning. In his will, he left his daughters as heirs, but also named the Emperor Nero alongside them, a gesture meant to honor Rome and protect the bloodline. It was a calculated offering, half loyalty to Rome, half legacy to his kin. But Rome did not honor gestures. Rome respected only strength. When Prasutagus died, the fiction of Iceni independence died with him. Part 2. The Spark of Rebellion. Rome came not as heir, but as conqueror. The procurator of Britain, Catus Decianus, wasted no time. The Iceni kingdom was annexed outright, its lands seized, its treasures carted away. Soldiers marched through villages with the cold entitlement of victors. The wealth of generations was stripped, the freedom of a tribe erased by decree. But conquest was not enough. Humiliation was Rome's weapon. Boudica, queen of the Iceni, was dragged before her people. She was tied and publicly flogged, her body lashed until blood streaked her skin. Her daughters, still girls, still untainted by war or marriage, were seized and raped by Roman soldiers, the sacred bloodline of the tribe desecrated in the open. What was meant to break the Iceni's pride instead kindled an inferno of fury. To make matters worse, loans long imposed upon the tribes by Rome's financiers were suddenly recalled. Seneca himself, philosopher in name but moneylender in practice, demanded repayment, plunging already impoverished people into ruin. Fields were mortgaged, homes emptied, families shackled by debt. Rome believed it had sent a message. Resistance was crushed, rebellion was impossible, submission was the only future. Yet in their arrogance, they mistook silence for surrender. What Rome could not see was that it had struck not at wealth, nor at territory, but at the soul of a queen and the honor of a nation. The lash, the chains, the outrage, they were sparks, and sparks in dry grass do not die quietly. Part 3. The Call to Arms. Night fell across the plains, and with it came fire. Signal flames lit the hilltops, carried from settlement to settlement, calling warriors from their homes. In sacred groves beneath the moonlight, oaths were sworn and blades sharpened. Warriors painted their faces with the blue dye of woad, symbols of gods and war etched into their flesh. Boudica stood before her people, not as a broken widow, but as a chosen avenger. She lifted her spear high, the light of the flames dancing across her figure, her voice thundering through the night air. It is not as a woman descended from kings, but as one of the people that I rise. I avenge lost freedom. I avenge the scourging of my body. I avenge the outraged chastity of my daughters. This is a fight not for a throne, but for every hearth, every child, every god dishonored by Rome. The Iceni rallied, but they were not alone. The Trinovantes, long crushed under Rome's colonists, joined the cause. Other tribes, weary of Roman taxes and oppression, abandoned fear and flocked to her banner. Across the land, discontent transformed into rebellion. The army swelled until what had been scattered resentment became a living storm, an estimated 100,000 to 120,000 strong, men and women alike, a sea of painted warriors who would rise like a tide against Rome's order. The drums of war thundered across Britain, and with each heartbeat, Boudica's vengeance grew nearer. Part 4. The First Blow. Camulodunum. Camulodunum, modern Colchester, was Rome's pride in Britain, a colonia of veterans, a fortress of Roman culture built upon the bones of conquered tribes. Its villas displayed tiled mosaics, its streets lined with Roman stone, and at its center, the towering temple of Claudius rose in arrogance, a shrine to the emperor who had claimed Britain for Rome. To the Britons, it was not a temple, but a symbol of chains. Boudica struck here first. Her warriors descended like fire upon the settlement. Veterans, confident in their Roman status, were caught unprepared. Civilians screamed as homes burned, soldiers scrambled for defense, but the tide was unstoppable. The temple became their last refuge, fortified and crowded with desperate defenders. For 2 days they held against the storm, praying for relief, but no relief came. The temple was stormed, its walls toppled, its sanctity reduced to ashes. Legionona Hispana marched to intervene, but the legion was ambushed. Surrounded in open ground, nearly every infantryman was slaughtered. Only the cavalry escaped to spread the tale of devastation. Rome had not merely been challenged, it had been humiliated. Part 5. Rome in panic. News traveled with the speed of terror. Governor Suetonius Paulinus, far to the northwest assaulting the Druids on Mona, received word of disaster and abandoned his campaign. The sacred groves of Anglesey burned behind him, but he knew a greater fire was consuming Britain. Boudica marched swiftly. Her next target was Londinium, a fledgling city of trade, a hub of wealth but without walls strong enough to resist. Suetonius reached the city first, weighing his options. With too few troops, he could not defend it. The choice was bitter but clear. He abandoned Londinium, ordering evacuation. Many refused to leave, trusting in Rome's might. When Boudica's host arrived, the city was reduced to cinders, its streets drowned in blood. From Londinium, the rebels surged to Verulamium, today's St. Albans, where they unleashed the same vengeance. Fields blackened, bodies lined the roads, smoke choked the skies. Tacitus records that 70,000 to 80,000 Romans and their allies perished in this wave of destruction. For the first time, the empire trembled on the edge of losing Britain altogether. Part 6. The Final Stand. Suetonius, though outnumbered 10 to 1, chose his ground with the precision of a soldier. His 10,000 men took position in a narrow valley, flanked by dense forests, a place where the Britons' numbers would count for less, where discipline could withstand the storm. Across the open field, Boudica's host gathered. The sight was awe itself, chariots rattling forward, warriors painted in blue, shouting to the gods, brandishing spears and swords. Behind them, wagons stood, filled with women and children who had come to watch Rome's destruction. The rebels believed victory inevitable. Silence held the Roman lines. Then the signal was given. the air filled with a hail of pila, Roman javelins cutting through the mass of charging warriors. Shields locked, formations advanced in a wedge, driving deep into the throng. Cavalry swept the flanks, hacking through confusion. The Britons fought with fury, but chaos was their undoing. Trapped against their own wagons, hemmed in by the disciplined advance of the legions, their courage became slaughter. The plain was heaped with bodies, tens of thousands fallen where they stood. Ancient sources claim 80,000 Britons died that day. Rome lost scarcely 400. The rebellion was broken in a single, merciless clash. Part 7. The Death of a Queen. The fields of Britain fell silent. Smoke curled from pyres. Carrion birds circled above, and the cries of the wounded faded into stillness. And in that silence, the fate of Boudica herself slipped into legend. Some say she drank poison, refusing the humiliation of capture, choosing death on her own terms. Others claim illness struck her in the aftermath, her body failing after her spirit had burned so fiercely. However it came, she vanished from the stage of history, leaving behind a memory far greater than her mortal years. Part 8. Legacy of the Warrior Queen. Rome remained in Britain, its grip reinforced with brutal efficiency, its roads and fortresses carved deeper into the land. Yet Rome could never erase the shadow of the queen who had nearly unseated them. For centuries, her name lingered only in Roman texts, a warning and a marvel, a woman who defied the empire with fire and blood. It was the Renaissance that first revived her, and the Victorians who transformed her into an icon of national pride. Poets sang her as a heroine of liberty. Statues rose to honor her strength. In 1902, a bronze monument was raised near Westminster Bridge. Boudica and her daughters, mounted in a war chariot, wheels poised as though still charging against time itself. Today, historians remember her with complexity. To some, she was a freedom fighter, a leader of defiance. To others, a destroyer whose vengeance brought death to tens of thousands. But all agree she was a force Rome could neither forget nor diminish. Her name, Boudica, means victorious woman. In that brief, blazing rebellion, she embodied her name fully, her legacy carved not in stone or empire, but in the undying spirit of resistance. And though centuries have passed, her chariot still seems to thunder across the fields of Britain, her cry echoing against the silence of Rome. Never again shall chains be mistaken for peace.
Please subscribe and look for more documentaries at Swords and Shadows.